Welcome to a play-by-play review. I'm your host Henry, and it's time to return to the Caprulu sector. We're going back to some more StarCraft, picking up right where we left off last week, where we finished up, well, I guess I finished up summarizing the base campaign of StarCraft 1. And so we're going to be moving on to the Brood War campaign. Now, for those who do not know, StarCraft Brood War is an expansion to the base StarCraft. Very common thing that you would see in a lot of games back in the day, especially RTS games, were expansion packs that were usually released not too long after the initial release of the game. I think Brood War itself came out like within the same year as base StarCraft. Let me just double check on that. So base StarCraft released in March 31st of 1998. Brood War released of December 18th, 1998. So not like what, 7 months, 8 months, I think, roughly, in between releases. So that like visually, Brood War is basically the same. Like they don't change too much. They just improve a lot of stuff, like little stuff here and there. The big things outside of the campaign is that each of the three factions or races, whichever one you want to call them, gain 2 new units. The Terrans get the Valkyrie, a sort of bulky, dedicated anti-air flyer. And they also get the Medic, which is an infantry unit that can heal your other infantry units, as well as provide some other utility here and there. Medic is really good. The Medic is really, really nice. Valkyrie is okay. It's not my favorite unit in the game. It's cool, and we haven't seen it at all since, but it's definitely, it's a little too niche for my liking. The Zerg get the Lurker, which is actually an evolution of the Hydralisk, which can, instead of just kind of roaming around shooting things, shooting air or ground, the Lurker does not have a normal attack, and it instead burrows underground, and then it shoots out like this line of spines that do incredible area damage in a line. So they're really good against bunched up stuff like Marines or Zerglings. So they're kind of more of a defensive unit, but you can also use them as offensive. And they're a pretty cool unit nonetheless. Like visually, they're pretty cool. There's the other unit the Zerg get is the Devourer, which is an evolution of the Mutalisk. The Mutalisk, which I never really talked too much about the specific units in the previous episode, but so the Mutalisk is the traditional Zerg flyer. It's this sort of like vaguely worm in the sense of like WYRM worm, like it's got these sort of like bat wings, and it's got like this weird curved body to it, like not necessarily draconic, but it's interesting, but it's really, really strong in the game. Like Zerglings and Mutalisks are basically all you need as a Zerg player in StarCraft 1. I like more in the competitive sense, from what I know, like Zergling Muta is the go-to combination for Zerg players in StarCraft 1. And so the Mutalisk is a very fast, kind of fragile flyer that has decent damage. In the base game, it could evolve into the Guardian, which is this giant flying crab that is very slow, but has an insane range to its attack. It is a dedicated anti-ground siege weapon. I love the Guardian. It's a very fun unit. So the Guardian remains in StarCraft Brood War. It's just you can also have the choice to make the Devourer, which is a very bulky, dedicated anti-capital ship, like air-to-air flyer. It's okay. It is a very slow attack, but its attack can like gradually reduces the armor, with each hit of its target. So it's good against. It's really best against carriers and battle cruisers because it'll reduce their armor. So you can like throw in a couple Devourers along with some Mutalisks or Scourge, which are flying suicide units that basically just explode and do a ton of damage. I don't really like using the Scourge. They're just kind of annoying. But yeah, the Devourers are pretty interesting there. And then the final units for the Protoss, before I get into the story, are the Dark Templar, which were units that existed in StarCraft 1 in the campaign only. You couldn't build them in base StarCraft 1. They are sort of like your assassin units. They are permanently cloaked, but very fragile. So you gotta, like, if they get spotted, they're almost certainly gonna die because they just don't have a lot of health or shields. But they remain permanently cloaked, and they do a ton of damage with their side blades. Dark Templar are really cool. I love the Dark Templar so much. And then also in Brood War, the Dark Templar can merge together to form the Dark Archon, which I'll actually go over some specifics about when we get to the campaign section, because they're the later sections I'll just talk about a little bit about them. But the Dark Archons are really, really good. They're similar in a sense to the regular Archons, which were a thing that existed in the base game, where if you take 2 High Templar, which were sort of your spellcasters, they had Psystorm, which is this area of effect attack, essentially, they like ability that they had that basically you just click on an area. It has this radius where it casts the storm in, and it does a ton of area damage. Psystorms are really good. And then High Templar, I think, also had Hallucination, which you could basically create fake units that don't do any damage if they attack, but they are, can be useful for various things. They're very infamous moment in StarCraft 2 esports with hallucinations, but you can go look that up on your own time. And then High Templar could merge into an Archon, where you would sacrifice 2 of them. After a little bit of time, they would come out as an Archon, which was basically this being of pure energy. It had like 300 shields and 10 health, and it just had a strong attack that did a lot of damage and could target air and ground. It was like pretty, like, not a very complicated unit. It just did a lot of damage. Whereas the Dark Archon is a spellcaster, but again, I will get into the specifics of that in a little bit. And then the final new unit in Brood War was the Corsair, a dedicated anti-flyer unit, a flying unit, an air-to-air ship, small, nimble ship that has a very fast yet, like a very rapid yet weak air-to-air attack, as well as a disruption web ability that can nullify an area on the ground. It's usually basically casted on a defensive emplacement like a missile turret, a spore colony, or a photon cannon. And it prevents that structure from doing anything for, I think it's like 20 to 30 seconds. It lasts for a good while. So it's the Corsairs are more of a support craft compared to, say, the Scouts, which are more of your dedicated anti-air aircraft, I guess, is the like dedicated anti-air flying unit that the Protoss have. The Corsairs also like a dedicated anti-air flying unit, but it's a bit more of a utility unit compared to the Scout, which is more just pure offense. And if you're wondering why each race got a dedicated anti-air unit, like a dedicated anti-air flyer, is that Mutalisks were just insane in base StarCraft. That Blizzard was like, we need to nerf Mutalisks, so let's give everyone a method to get rid of Mutalisks faster. With especially the Valkyrie, since the Terrans didn't have like a great way of dealing with Mutalisks consistently. The Valkyrie is like, its sole purpose is to kill Mutalisks, and that's it, because it has its attack is literally an area effect air attack. It cannot hit ground, so it's just destroy air units in an area where it's like, we need to get rid of the mutas. Let's give them the Valkyrie. But anyway, long preamble over about units. We'll get into the story here right now. So we start in a indiscernible amount of time after the previous campaign ended. To catch you all back up, the Terrans have replaced the inept Confederacy with the Terran Dominion, which is a lot more powerful, led by Emperor Arcturus Mengsk, and they hate the Protoss and the Zerg. Former Confederate Marshal James Raynor, known as Jim, he's running his own little rebellion known as Raynor's Raiders, although he's also been working with the Protoss. The Zerg were led by the Overmind, They captured Terran Ghost Sarah Kerrigan and turned her into the Queen of Blades. The Overmind then went to the Protoss homeworld of Ire after discerning its location from the Dark Prelate Zeratul. The Overmind rooted itself onto Ire to oversee the invasion. And that was basically the Zerg campaign. I was just going to end it off in a better way, but no. Then the Protoss, they were, while dealing with the invasion of Ire, I was just thinking, like, did I say that Phoenix came back to life as a Dragoon in StarCraft 1? I just got sidetracked majorly. I'll get to that in a second. Anyway, so the Protoss, dealing with the invasion of Ire, went to go arrest Tassadar, brought him back, and then Tassadar helped blow up the Overmind, sacrificing himself in the process. So at this point, the Protoss homeworld of Ire is overrun with Zerg, and the Protoss have lost a huge chunk of their population at this point, and are now reeling from the loss basically of their homeworld and need to find a way off planet. Since the Zerg, while they are no longer under the control of the Overmind, are still incredibly dangerous because they're basically just feral animals at this point, looking to hunt anything. Like they can basically be controlled by like overlords and stuff, but they're all just kind of off doing their own thing. And then about Phoenix, I don't remember if I actually said this or not last week, but so Phoenix quote unquote dies like after mission 3, where he like stays behind to defend the Protoss outpost of Antioch, while you as Artanis go to Char to go arrest Tassadar. When you come back, it's revealed that Phoenix is alive. He's been placed in a Dragoon's, he's been placed in a Dragoon, which is this like mechanical exosuit, or not necessarily exosuit. He's like in this, it basically I can describe it as like this 4-legged crab walker that is a really fun unit in the game. It's like it's the equivalent to like the Hydralisk or the Goliath for the Protoss, where it's this like ranged strider that is bulky and has a range attack that does good damage. It also has famously awful pathing. The like one of the big like sort of memes in a sense, or like one of the more infamous things to come out of StarCraft 1 was that, well, it was a very good game. Its pathing as a whole was not very good, just with how it was designed, and the Dragoon was like somehow significantly worse than like every other unit than outside of maybe the Goliath, but the Dragoon is just hilariously bad. You point it in the direction that you want it to go, and it will certainly move. If it goes in the direction you want to, it's a bonus. It also does not handle stairs at all. Like you just cannot go up ramps. You cannot go up any sort of incline. It's really funny. Anyways, so now, once again, preamble over, 12 minutes in, we get to the first mission in the Brood War Protoss campaign, episode 4, which is the Stand. And the first mission is Escape from Ire. So with things kind of looking bleak, Aldaris and Zeratul, who don't exactly like each other, more so Aldaris just hates Zeratul for existing as a Dark Templar. They both realize that at this point where they're like, hey, we kind of need to get out of here. We also get introduced to Artanis officially. Like I said, last episode, Artanis gets retconned into being the player character, the Executor from the Protoss campaign in base StarCraft. So I guess he's like, if assuming that Praetor, the rank of Praetor is below Executor, which I feel like it is, because I feel like Praetor is sort of like a field general, whereas Executors were like command general in a sense. Like the Executor is like overseeing the battle from above. I mean, you're literally playing as the Executor is, like where you're looking out across the battlefield to order everyone around. Whereas the Praetor, which is a rank Phoenix held, still technically holds at this point because he's alive at this point, but Phoenix and Artanis are Praetors at this point. So I guess Praetor, like, because it's a line of dialogue that Aldaris introduces Artanis as the new Praetor. It's just like looking back at it with Artanis like being retconned into the Executor role, it feels like he got a demotion at this point. I don't know if that's exactly how it works, but yeah. Anyway, the player character that you play as, the new Executor, their identity is never revealed. though a lot of people like to headcanon this as Selendis, who is a sort of minor Protoss character that shows up in StarCraft 2. She's pretty cool. I like her a lot. I wish she got more to do in StarCraft 2, but it's something that people like to headcanon, but it's one that I don't think has ever been confirmed officially. This Executor that you play as in episode 4 is just someone. We don't know who. Don't know what happens to him. Who knows? But anyway, Escape from Ire is a pretty simple mission. You basically take Zeratul and some other Protoss, and you fight through a bunch of Zerg that are just kind of out wreaking havoc. You rescue some more Protoss along the way, and then eventually you get to the bottom right of the map, and you find a warp gate. And Zeratul's like, we need to get to the warp gate so we can go through there and go to the Dark Templar homeworld of Shakuras, because we can, harbor you guys there while we figure out what to do with Ire now destroyed. So Zeratul takes all the boys there, and they flee through the warp gate right as a massive Zerg attack force shows up and starts wreaking havoc. Phoenix and Raynor remain behind to try and hold off the Zerg while you get through. So after that comes mission 2, Dunes of Shakuras. So you arrive on Shakuras, and Zeratul's like, we must find the Dark Templar. They could be here anywhere, but we need to go search for them. So you go up, and then you go to the left, and then you basically immediately find the Dark Templar. It takes like 2 seconds. You then get ambushed by the Zerg, and then the Dark Templar show up and save you. And they're like, all right, let's build a base, and let's go deal with some of the Zerg that are around close by, because, the Zerg followed us through the warp gate, and they're kind of plaguing Shakuras, and we don't like that, so we got to get rid of them. So you go and do that. You find the warp gate, and it's like, oh no, the Zerg have surrounded it with forces, so you go and eliminate them. This mission's always fun because you basically get most of the Protoss tech tree unlocked. Like you have Dark Templars, you have Scouts, Zealots, Dragoons. I forget if you have High Templar or not. I don't think you do, but you might. But even still, like having Scouts and Dark Templar at this point against a Zerg force that is like basically just has Zerglings and Hydralisks is really fun, because it's not one that, like, a lot of the time you're usually fighting more at a disadvantage tech wise compared to the enemy. So it's like you try and have a little bit of a challenge. But yeah, it's a fun one. So eventually you go and you take down the Zerg Hive cluster, pretty easy. And when you go to the warp gate, you kind of hear through the psionic connection or whatever it is that Raynor and Phoenix are able to kind of stabilize their side, and they decide to power down the warp gate to prevent more Zerg from getting through, and that they're going to figure out what to do instead. So you no longer get Phoenix and Raynor helping out for the rest of this campaign, but instead you also don't really have to deal with too many more Zerg. You just have to go and eliminate the Zerg that are currently here. So after that comes Legacy of the Xel'Naga. So now that the Protoss refugees from Ire are settled on Shakuras, they kind of all convene together. So it's Zeratul, Aldaris, Artanis, and the new character to this story is the Dark Templar matriarch Rajagal. And Rajagal, who's happy to see everyone back, obviously not under great circumstances, but she's, happy to see that Protoss are, alive and not everyone's dead, essentially. She's especially happy to see Zeratul back because she likes Zeratul because he's good at his job. And so Rajagal is like, all right, we have some some Zerg Cerebrits here, so we got to go get rid of them. I don't have too much of a issue with the High Templars here. It's the past is the past. We got to move forward, especially now in these trying times. So let's go unite together to go take down the Zerg. So they do that. And to start off, this is the mission where you get introduced to Corsairs. So there's like a scripted sequence where you see the Corsairs disruption web ability on some Zerg defenses, so that which helps you establish a base. And it's a pretty fun one where you have to like manage 2 bases at once while preparing to set up an attack force on an island that has the 2 Cerebrits. The Cerebrits are also guarding a Xel'Naga temple. I don't know if I mentioned too much about the Xel'Naga in the last episode, but very, very TLDR is that the Xel'Naga are this mysterious race that created the Protoss and the Zerg. I think I might have talked a little bit about this, but I do want to restate it. But yeah, the Xel'Naga existed like millennia before. They created the Protoss and the Zerg, and left a bunch of ruins and stuff. So they become more important as the games go on. But for now, though, along with actually defeating the Cerebrits, Rajagal also points out that they are defending a Xel'Naga temple, which is capable of actually eradicating all the Zerg on the planet. It can basically create like a giant energy energy wave of destruction, I guess is the best way I can describe it. And that would like theoretically, if they can activate it, it could purge all the Zerg from Shakuras. So you go and you fight the two Cerebrits, and because you have the Dark Templar on your side, the Cerebrits can die for good. Which it's interesting, like to think about that at this point, since the Overmind is dead. Well, sort of. The original Overmind is dead. We'll get to the anyway. That comes up later, but yeah, with the Overmind dead, like you would think that the Cerebrits, if they died, like they would die permanently no matter what, because they don't have an Overmind to go back to. But I don't know. It doesn't matter too much. So after defeating these Cerebrits, you are able to secure the temple, and then some more Overlords show up, but these instead, instead of, I guess the Overlords can't exactly attack, but the Overlords deposit none other than Sarah Kerrigan, the Queen of Blades, who shows up and is like, hey, we need to talk. So Kerrigan starts talking, and she says that there is a new Overmind being grown on the planet of Char. Basically, Dagoth, who was still alive at this point, was basically took a bunch of Cerebrits and mashed them all together to create a new Overmind, though at this point it's still basically in its infancy. And at this point, because of the old Overmind's death, she is now free of the Overmind's control and is her own independent person. Though this would change, of course, if the new Overmind matured and reestablished its total control over the Zerg, essentially. So it's basically Kerrigan's like, hey, we got a big enemy to stop. I don't want to go back to being a servant of the Overmind. I want to, be independent. So let's help each other. Aldaris hates this. He's immediately just going sus, and is like, sus on Kerrigan. I do not want to work here at all. I already hate being here. There's like these heretical Dark Templar and their Zerg loving ways. I'm out. So he just kind of leaves. Like he rage quits the Zoom meeting during the next mission briefing. So at this point, Rajagal's like, all right, hey, let's hear Kerrigan out. At this, like she's like, I may not trust Kerrigan, but let's hear her out. And Zeratul and Artanis are like, okay. Sure. Like Zeratul is not happy to see Kerrigan at all, because remember, Kerrigan basically butchered a bunch of his fellow Dark Templar on Char in the previous, back in StarCraft 1. So he's not exactly a fan of hers at all. Artanis obviously isn't much of a fan of hers either. Rajagal, however, is a bit more open to hearing out Kerrigan. So after some discussions and agreeing to eventually team up, Kerrigan is basically willing to help the Protoss with their problems, like with the Zerg problem on Shakuras, in exchange for dealing with the Overmind as well. So at this point, one other thing that I kind of glossed over a little bit was that in relation to the Xel'Naga temple, in order to activate it, they needed two distinct crystals, the Uraj and the Kalas. The Uraj being a crystal made of pure High Templar energy, and then the Kalas being a crystal made of pure Dark Templar energy. So it's like the two halves of the Protoss society coming together to eradicate the Zerg, symbolism and stuff. So mission 4, not 5, mission 4 is the quest for the Uraj, the first of the two. The Uraj is located, according to, I think it's Rajagal who says it, I don't remember exactly, but on the planet of Braxis, which is one that is pretty... we visited a lot in various points of StarCraft, but anyway, the planet of Braxis was at one point a Protoss colony, though it was long since abandoned. Though they left at this point the Uraj there. So when they arrive at Braxis, however, they find that the Terran Dominion have actually set up shop here for doing stuff. So you gotta fight against the Dominion, because the Dominion don't like the Protoss at all. Kerrigan also shows up, so it's a fun mission where you're playing the Protoss, but you also have Kerrigan, who is very much not a Protoss. She is, in fact, the farthest thing from a Protoss as a hybrid Terran and Zerg. But Kerrigan's also really strong in literally every instance in StarCraft. She's really strong, but she's also really strong here because it's like fully powered Queen of Blades Kerrigan. You have Psystorm, you have Cloak, and you got her claw wings that she whacks people with for like 50 damage. She can like one shot a Marine with it. And yeah, so there's like a decently well defended Terran base that you gotta go. I mean, technically you have to just go around because the actual Uraj is at the back of the base. Like you can kind of sneak around behind it. But you can also just break through it if you really wanted to. Like you could use Reavers, the very hungry, angry caterpillars. I am really stumbling over my words. I don't know why. I'm going pretty fast, but yeah, like you can use Reavers. You can use. Pretty sure you have High Templar at this point, but it's a pretty fun mission. I remember just using Kerrigan and some Reavers to kind of try and sneak around, like destroying a good bit of the Terrans, but also not like fully taking down their base. But eventually getting around behind and Kerrigan securing the crystal for Kerrigan, or for the Protoss, I should say. So after that comes probably my favorite mission in all of StarCraft 1. So mission number 5 is the Battle of Braxis, and it starts off with a bit of a surprise for the story, as the Protoss are getting ready to ship out and get out of Dodge. They don't feel like fighting the Dominion anymore because they got what they needed, so they're going to go home because they need to go home pretty quickly. But they are instead blocked by a new Terran force, not the Dominion. However, they are instead blocked by elements of the United Earth Directorate Expeditionary Fleet, led at this point by Vice Admiral Alexei Stukov. So the UED are the new sort of faction. They're a Terran faction, but a new player in the game, in the story. They have obviously come from Earth to go. Well, their goals at this point are a bit unstated, but they're here in the Kaprulu sector. They're also fighting against the Dominion, but also they are not friendly to the Protoss either, and they set up a blockade around the planet, including a giant platform full of missile turrets, which you have to go and disable in order to break through and get out. So this mission is really fun because it's sort of like a puzzle game, essentially, where it's a no build mission. Like you don't have it's not your typical macro mission where you have a base and you have materials to go and mine and then create units. It's one where you have a specific set of units that are finite, but the enemy is also finite. And there's like 5 distinct sections that you have to go through, each where you have basically you have to destroy generators powering sections of the missile turrets. And as you destroy more and more generators, you're able to bring in more reinforcements. And the reinforcements you bring in are like different and higher tech based, so you have more options to work with. But at the same time, as you progress further and further onto the platform, the defenses are a lot tougher and more varied. So it's like it's a mixing and match of like understanding what kind of resources you have at your disposal, as well as the kind of resources that your enemy has. So it's a really fun mission that I think showcases the best of what StarCraft and really real-time strategy as a whole has to offer. So after obviously story-wise, this is actually outside of the introduction of the UED. It's not the most like thrilling mission in the world. It's basically you destroy the generators, you power down the platform, and you escape. But yeah, now the big thing here though is that the UED is here. They're here to stay for the moment at least. And yeah, they're going to be a problem in the future. But for now, though, the Protoss don't really care about them too much because they have bigger things to deal with. So with the Uraj secured, the Callus is up next. And the Protoss and the gang and Kerrigan as well are able to track the Callus to none other than Char. Because, of course, everything has to go back to Char. I swear, we go back to Char so many times in StarCraft. It's kind of ridiculous. So Zeratul had actually figured out that the Callus was here when he was on Char back in StarCraft 1. He just didn't really think much of it at the time because like he didn't really need it. But now he's like, oh, I guess, well, we need it now, so let's go back. So this mission, the Return to Char mission number 6, is a pretty interesting one where you basically have the option to either go and get the Callus directly, but it's like you have to navigate through a series of valleys like that are heavily defended by Zerg forces, or you can try and like sneak around to actually take down the new Overmind, or at least take it down for a little bit. Like you can basically wound it but not fully kill it. I always find it a little weird how like you could totally sneak an actual Dark Templar over here and like just stab it. Like you could shank it with a Dark Templar and it would, in theory, kill it permanently. But I guess maybe because the Overmind's so powerful, you would need like a ton of Dark Templar energy, like what Tassadar had to use and at the end of StarCraft 1. So I guess that's it. But I always find it more fun to actually sneak around back and take down the Overmind, because basically if you do it, it knocks out the Zerg long enough that you can actually just waltz in and take the Callus without any resistance. Although that part is like, once you beat the Overmind, you're able to win the mission. Like you don't have to go get the Callus after that. But it's a fun one. And it's not quite the same as or it's not quite as good as Battle Braxis, but it's a fun mission where you can choose which way you want to do it. One thing that I really love about Brood War is the increase in quality and like variety of the missions in Brood War. The like base StarCraft 1 had some pretty solid missions, but a lot of them were fairly simplistic overall. Brood War is a major step up in mission design, and yeah, like back to back, the quest for Uraj kind of, but like Legacy of the Xel'Naga, Battle of Braxis, Return to Char, pretty good ones. So that with the Uraj and the Callus secured, the gang all returns to Shakuras, only to find that Aldaris has broken off, taken the High Templar loyalists essentially with him to form a rebellion, with the mission itself called the Insurgent. Aldaris is basically like, calling everyone heretics, is going like, why are you siding with Kerrigan? She's a Zerg. She's a terrible person. And he's not wrong in like a lot of this. He's just being an asshole about it. Essentially, he's just a really crappy person, Aldaris. But basically everything he says in this mission, he's like kind of correct about. So in the end, though, you have to go and take him down. So this is the mission where you get Dark Archons. Since you're without at this point the High Templar, Archons, and Arbiters, which are all like heavily linked directly to the High Templar faction within the Protoss. I don't think you get carriers in this either, because I think that Dark Templar just don't have carriers at all. I could be wrong though, but I remember not being able to get carriers in this map. I actually don't even know if you can get scouts in this map, or in this mission. What you do get, however, are Dark Archons. And Dark Archons are hilariously fun to use, if only for the one spell that they have. So they have, I think, 3. One of them is like 2 of them basically are you don't care about. The Dark Archon also, like the High Templar equivalent, they are being a pure energy, although they are like void energy, so they're all red and stuff. So they have like 250 shields and like 5 HP or something like that. They also do not have an attack. They cannot physically attack just like by right-clicking on something while you have them selected. They can only use the abilities they have at their disposal. The crowning thing that they have, the thing that makes them so incredibly fun to use, is mind control. And mind control does exactly what you think it does, and more actually. It does. It's kind of broken. Mind control permanently takes control of an enemy unit. It doesn't matter which one. It can be a zealot, it could be a carrier, it could be a zergling, it could be an ultralisk or battlecruiser or marine. Literally any of them. You click on it, and mind control also has a pretty insane casting range as well. Like, you don't have to be right up next to someone. You can cast it from like 30 feet away and still mind control them. But one thing that's like not really stated, but what it does. So I don't know if it does this in multiplayer. But what it does do in competitive, or not in, in the campaign for the whole 2 missions you have them, is that it also steals the level of tech that the enemy has. So in this one, since you're fighting Protoss versus Protoss, because like with every mission, you start off with basically no upgrades, research, anything like that. But if you wait a little bit and steal one of Alderas's units, you get all of the upgrades that he's researched relating to that unit. So like you can steal a battle, or not a battle cruiser, a carrier, and get the upgrades that give it increased hangar space, which is kind of insane. Like you don't have to research it. It just comes free. It's ridiculous. And this mission is one where it seems hard on the surface because you have a really small force compared to the really well-defended Protoss base that is belongs to Aldaris. And there's actually technically 3 of them, where Aldaris creates 2 hallucinations of himself because he's like a High Templar. And like 2 of them are fakes. So there's like, if you kill them, it's basically it does nothing and it'll taunt you. Although it's kind of funny where it's like if you're looking at the map, it's like the 2 fakes are in basically outposts, and then the actual real Aldaris is like in the back of a really heavily defended main base right in the middle. But it's still fun because he can basically just poach all of Aldaris' stuff and all of his tech without having to spend a single dollar, or mineral or Vespene geyser gas, outside of the stuff that you need to get the dark archons for. But it's really fun. The best part though is that all of the objectives and like hero units and stuff are not immune to spells either. So the speedrun strat for this is to basically cram a bunch of Dark Archon into some shuttles and like hallucinate them as well, or like defend them essentially, rush them into the Protoss base, drop off a Dark Archon, and have them mind control the real Aldaris, and you just win. Like you just click on it with mind control and you just win. Because he quote unquote dies since he gets turned to your side, and it's like you can beat the mission in like 2 minutes. It's really fun. So anyway, to go back to the story for this mission, as it actually does get important at the end. So you are able to defeat Aldaris' forces and corner him essentially, and Aldaris is basically trying to explain his actions, where he's like, he's basically ranting at the time, as Kerrigan also shows up. And like, story-wise, it's definitely different, but gameplay-wise, you're literally watching as Aldaris is like starting to explain something really important, as Kerrigan just shows up from an overlord with a pair of lurkers. The lurkers bury right next to Aldaris and then just kill him mid-sentence. As you're just like, as Zeratul is there just watching, by the way. Like, he's literally just watching this, in gameplay-wise, as like his unit's right there. But story-wise, I'm assuming it's different. But basically, Aldaris is like in the middle of trying to explain something about Rajagal, only for Kerrigan to kill him mid-sentence. And Zeratul is like very confused and very angry at Kerrigan for meddling in Protoss business, and Kerrigan's like, sucks to suck. Thanks for killing all the or thanks for weakening the Zerg. It makes me more powerful, so I can go and get more Zerg on my side, because Kerrigan, while she has free will, she is still very much evil at this point, and is basically played the Protoss for her advantage, because she didn't really care about them too much. She just wanted to weaken the other Zerg enough that she, delay the start of the Overmind, or delay the growth of the Overmind, and allow her to consolidate more power in the, I guess the Brood War is kind of ongoing at this point, but yeah, it's like the ongoing civil war, essentially, between the various feral Zerg broods that are scattered about after the death of the Overmind. So anyway, that is Insurgent. That was Mission 7. I had to sidetrack about the Dark Archon, because the Dark Archon is really fun. So with the death of Aldaris, not that too many people are missing him, it still kind of sucks for the Protoss, and they're kind of like, it's basically Zeratul, Artanis, and kind of Rajagal, but it's largely just Zeratul and Artanis are kind of like sulking in the Zoom call to start the final mission, which is Countdown. Each campaign in the Brood War has 8 missions, by the way, instead of the 10 from the original. But at this point, Zeratul and Artanis are like, all right, well, can't do much about this at the moment, so let's go do what we originally came back to do, and that was take the Uraj and the Callus to the temple and light it up so we can get rid of all the Zerg. So Countdown is a pretty tough mission because you have to deal with a ton of Zerg. And it's similar to the battle of, or the invasion of Aiur in the Protoss campaign in StarCraft 1 or in the Zerg campaign in StarCraft 1, my apologies, where you have like the first half is an attack mission to get to the point. And then the second half is a defense mission where you have to defend the point. This one though, you actually, technically, I don't think you have to, you can actually beat it if you kill all the Zerg on the map. There's just a huge amount of Zerg. And it was one that I wanted to do when I went into this. I just was a bit too late in formulating a strategy. And by that point, I was kind of running out of resources and didn't really have enough to do it. But the way you can do it is that, so the Zerg have a ton of stuff you can use. And while you can certainly use just your Protoss forces to try and seize them all, but the problem is there's mainly just one of the Zerg bases is on an island, and just the island is covered in spore colonies. And those are their static defense against air units. So they have very long range and do consistent damage. They're annoying to take care of even with carriers. Like even carriers and Corsairs would have a tough time dealing with them. However, the Protoss might not have the long range flying siege weapon that is like perfect for this situation, but the Zerg do in the Guardian. And because you have Dark Archons, you can steal a drone from the Zerg, and you can then use the Zerg to morph into a hatchery and create your own Zerg faction within. So you can literally tech up to you can tech up Guardians, you can tech up to Ultralisks, Devourers, Defilers. Like that's what I did. I wound up doing the defense section for this when I was playing through it, but my composition was like a mix of Carriers, Ultralisks, Devourers, Guardians, and Archon. It was just the weirdest composition going on. I also had Reavers in there. It was very fun because you have a ton of resources on this map, but the Zerg it's like the hardest Zerg base or just the Zerg forces in the game. It's crazy. But it's a fun mission overall. And in the end, Zeratul and Artanis are able to activate the temple and cleanse Shakuris of the Zerg, which ends the second Protoss campaign in a bit of a better note, sort of, than the end of the fall. So the Protoss are able to make a stand, and while their homeworld is destroyed and they were kind of played by Kerrigan, they are alive. Zeratul, Artanis, and Kerrigan and Rajagal are vibing on Shakuris, and they're starting to rebuild their society while Jim and Phoenix are also doing their own thing. We will see them in just a little bit as we get to episode 5, which is the second Terran campaign in StarCraft. So as the Terran campaign of Brood War, second Terran campaign overall. This one is titled The Iron Fist. And in The Iron Fist, no relation to the Star Wars Legends Warlord Zinj's Superstar Destroyer Iron Fist. Felt like I should throw that out there. But in the Iron Fist, you play as the United Earth Directorate. You are the UED in the Terran campaign, playing as a UED captain who never gets a name. Don't know too much about them, but yeah. So you as the UED captain are introduced to your two Zoom call buddies to start. Vice Admiral Alexei Stukov, who we saw a little bit of in the previous campaign, as well as the ultimate commander of this expeditionary fleet, Admiral Gerard Dugal. And one thing that I really like about the UED and how they're designed, I guess, how they're characterized, sort of, is that so the Terrans that we've known so far in StarCraft are all basically the ones that got sent here. Are like they're all space rednecks essentially. They all got kind of southern accents. They're all like American southern accents, space rednecks. It's that like lore wise, it was that there are a bunch of prison ships that Earth sent out in space, and like one of them wound up in the Kapulu sector, and then they started up the Terran colonies and stuff. It's not something I know too much about, but I think that's like partially the reason why that for the most part, all the Terrans sound like rednecks. The UED, however, is, since they are from Earth, they are very diverse in their, like, just who they are. Because Dougal is obviously French, Stukov is Russian, and then like the units that they introduced, the medics are American, but not necessarily Southern American. And then the Valkyries, which are the other new unit, and they are a UED designed ship. They are German. So it's like it's not much, but it's still something that I find pretty neat. Also, I think one thing about the medics actually is that there's a specific medic known as Lieutenant Morales who shows up in Here at the Storm. I think she also shows up in some like various like comics or books that relate to StarCraft, like tie-in novels and stuff. But she is, I don't remember specifically where, but I feel like she does show up in at least one of them. But she's obviously Hispanic, so it's like another one where it's like the UED is from, like, they're taking people from all over Earth, not just like the deep south essentially. But anyway, we start off with First Strike, which is the titular first mission for the UED campaign, and takes us back to Braxis. Since while the Protoss were off, dealing with the Uraj and the Callus and Shakuris and all that, the UED are obviously still here on Braxis fighting the Dominion. They were not planning on finding the Protoss here. They were just coming here to fight the They were coming here to fight the Dominion on Braxis. Since at this point they are able to, or Dougal's like, there's some kind of Confederate, or not Confederate, there's like a Dominion data center here on Braxis that we got to take over essentially, because it's got information and it'll help us get a lot more intel on the Dominion and the Kaprular sector as a whole to aid us in our mission. So you do that, and the mission starts out, and this is a fun line with Marine where he's like, it's like, oh, we got here, but this base doesn't have any gas. And he's like, he's so upset about it. It's really fun. So you got to go and find another base which has a Vespene geyser. So you do that, and you eventually find a base not run by the Dominion, but instead by supposed Confederate resistance forces led by a man known as Samir Duran, Lieutenant Samir Duran, formerly of the Confederacy, who is very much not a space redneck. He's got some, like, I want to say, like, vaguely, I don't even know if Cajun's the right word. I couldn't tell you what accent he has. Like, he has an accent. I don't know what kind, but he has, like, very much not a space redneck. But he's got like a ghost suit, so he's sort of like this infiltration specialist, and he's willing to side with the UED against the Dominion because the whole enemy of my enemy is my friend thing. So he's also like, oh yeah, by the way, there's a back road into the rear of the Dominion base. I can show you where it is, so we can go do that and take down the base and have some fun. And this mission's always fun because you start out with siege tanks, and siege tanks are the best Terran unit because siege tanks are love, siege tanks are life, and you can roll up a full squad of siege tanks through the back of the Terran base and just siege the entire thing. I love siege tanks so much. They are incredible in StarCraft 1. And this mission is one of the better ones you can use siege tanks on. So after securing the information outpost and getting a bunch of like intelligence on the Dominion, the UED locates one of their major shipyards known as the Dylarian shipyards, or as Admiral Dougal would pronounce it, the Dylarian shipyards, because he is French. The UED is like, all right, let's go there and take some of their battleships, or battle cruisers actually, because they could use the ships, more ships for them, less ships for the Dominion. So this one, it's another no build puzzle mission, kind of like the Battle of Praxis. This one, it's fun, but not quite as fun as Battle of Praxis. But you basically have a bunch of different sections where you have some pilots that you have to escort to battle cruisers stationed around, and you have various different units to try and escort them and take down the defenders. So it's like you get introduced to the medic and the abilities they have, and it's pretty fun. Like, you get to mess around with some ghosts and nukes and stuff. And eventually you're able to, you can get up to 18 battle cruisers. And once you do, though, General Duke shows up because he is basically the lead military guy for the Dominion, and Duke shows up with his own battlecruiser force. So it's a big capital ship fight, battlecruiser on battlecruiser fight at the end, which is always pretty fun. Eventually, though, you're able to destroy Duke's fleet and force him to retreat. And the UED is quickly running through the Dominion defenses and like basically just supplanting them as the new Terran powerhouse in the Kapulu sector. So after that, with more information deciphered and all that, the UED are able to locate a device known as the Psi Disruptor on the ruins of Tarsonis. Duran shows up in the Zoom call and he's like, hey, so this thing does some weird stuff with Zerg, so we should probably destroy it because it doesn't sound all that good. And Dugal's like, okay, sure, let's do it. And Stukov's like, are you sure? Are you sure? But I'll go along with it anyway. It's like Stukov's not quite convinced, but he's willing to defer to Dugal's orders. And so the gang travels to Tarsonis to go and find the Psi Disruptor. So you do in the ruins of Tarsonis. This is also where you get introduced to the Valkyrie as a unit. And this one's pretty fun, where you have like there's basically like a straight shot up to the Psi Disruptor from where you are at the bottom of the map. The Psi Disruptor is at the top of the map. There's just 4 Zerg bases that are all kind of independent from each other, lining the map on both sides. But since they are not under really anyone's control, it's basically like if you kill the hive, then you knock out the entire Zerg. They just go AFK. So it's pretty fun where like each Zerg base has like their own theme to it, and you can use like various different units and different strategies to take them each down because they're all kind of working independent of each other. It's a fun one where it's like, it's again kind of like a puzzle, but it's like it's more of a choose your own adventure, like which base do you want to take down? Because like one of them is focused heavily on ground defenses and ultralisks. Another one's focused on like guardians and air defenses. Another one's focused on like overlord drops and from high ground stuff and like harassment. And then the last one is just kind of there. I always take it down really quickly because it's like right next to your starting base and you can take it down with like 1 siege tank. So it's like, I don't even remember what it does, but it's just kind of there. But yeah, it's like you can kind of choose which way you want to do it. Choose how you want to do it. It's always pretty fun. But anyway, eventually after taking down the hives and securing the route to the Psi Disruptor, Dugal's like, all right, Duran, you can have your fun. Go blow up the Psi Disruptor. So Duran starts to do it, or he's like setting up to do it. But then some more UED forces show up after Dugal has left. And the guys go up to Duran and are like, hey, under orders of Admiral Stukov, let's not blow this up, essentially. So instead of blowing it up, under Stukov's orders, the UED has now secured the Psi Disruptor. So after that, we move on from the Zerg, essentially. The UED moves on to looking to take down Arcturus Mengsk and the Dominion. Since that is one of the goals that they have, not their total end goal, but one of their 2 main goals that they have at this point. And with a large chunk of the Dominion fleet either under their command or destroyed, and the Dominion they're powerful but still kind of limited. The UED with their massive fleet set their sights on the Dominion's capital world of Korhal, which starts out with Mission 4 and the assault on Korhal. And so the boys in their Zoom call are staging their plans, and they're like, all right, so before we tackle Mengsk's capital at the city of Augustgrad, we gotta weaken him a little bit, essentially. And we only have time and only have the resources to take down one of his 2 trump cards, which is either we can take down his ability to make battle cruisers, or take down his ability to make nukes. Essentially, it's basically you can choose which sort of end game Terran weapon to take down. It's like, do you want to face battle cruisers all the time, or do you want to face nukes all the time? I chose to take down the nukes because nukes are just a lot more annoying to deal with because they're launched from cloaked ghosts. And basically the way you have to take them down is you have to find the ghosts, which involve using detection, which Terrans don't have a lot of. You would need either a science vessel or a ComSat station on your command center. And then even then, after that, you also have to find where the nuke is being launched, and that can be pretty confusing because you're probably looking all over the place, and especially on the next mission where it occurs, you have a lot of room to work with. So that means a lot of room that could potentially be nuked. And battlecruisers, while certainly annoying, are a lot easier to deal with because the ghosts have an ability called Lockdown, which basically completely immobilizes and nullifies a unit. Like it's basically they can no longer move or shoot and still take damage for like a whole minute. Lockdown is a ridiculous ability, and it's a hard counter to battlecruisers. So I did that. And yeah, Battle Core Hall Mission 4 is like, it's not much to talk about story-wise, where it's basically like you either blow up the thing to make battlecruisers or you blow up the thing to make nukes, one of the two, and then you move on. Mission 5 is the big one, which is Emperor's Fall, where the UED sieges Augustgrad and Manx's heavily fortified base. And either you have to fight off a bunch of battlecruisers in addition to everything else, or a bunch of nukes. Either way, in the end, though, the UED is able to break through Core Hall's defenses and siege Augustgrad and eventually corner Mansk. But of all things to show up, a small Protoss fleet actually arrives along with Jim Raynor and the Hyperion. And Mansk, as well as Dougal and Stukov and everyone, are like, why are you here? Because Manx is like, I know Jim hates me. Why is he here? And Jim's like, I hate you, but we have a mutual friend who needs you. And I also don't like the UED at the moment. So yeah, he's like, Jim's basically like, I'm going with the enemy that I know over the enemy that I don't know. So it's basically Jim and Phoenix show up and rescue Manx and take him off Core Hall as the UED secures Core Hall and the Dominion. But since Manx is still out there, Dougal's like, we need to take him down. So the UED is able to track Mansk to Ire, where Raynor and Phoenix have been holding out. And it's pretty similar to the previous mission, Emperor's Fall. So Emperor's Flight, which is mission 6, is basically you gotta go from the bottom left of the map to the top right of the map to go take down Manx's command center to go take him down. And this one, however, instead of fighting the Terran, you fight the Protoss and the Zerg, since obviously the Zerg are still chilling on Ire and messing things up. They are, it's a lot. There's a lot of Zerg, essentially. But the Zerg are kind of like, they're fighting both the Protoss and you at the same time, more so the Protoss than you, to be honest. And it's a little tough, but eventually you're able to push through and Dougal orders Stukov and Duran to kind of cover some flanks. But then Duran kind of like pulls the whole like, oh, my comms are failing, can't hear you, bye, and just dips. Right as you're about, like, you break through and are like cornering Mansk. But with the impending Zerg showing up, Mansk is able to escape. So the mission ends in a failure. With that, you and Stukov, well, not you and Stukov, just Stukov, he dips essentially because he realizes something and he heads back to Braxis, where the side disruptor had been relocated to after being secured on Tarsonis. And Dougal is like, why is he doing this? Why is Stukov doing this? He's disobeying orders and now he's being all secretive and stuff. So I don't like this. And Duran's like, hey, you should send me there to go and deal with that. And Dougal's like, oh, okay, yeah, you can go and you can go kill him then, I guess. I don't know. I don't know why Dougal's like so just okay with like sending Duran out to like under orders of execution. Like, it's established during this campaign that Dougal and Stukov are like good friends and like very close comrades. Like they have a very tight bond together as admiral and vice admiral essentially. So like Dougal basically, like, I get that Stukov in Dougal's eyes has disobeyed orders, but and like Duran basically shifted the blame of the defeat on Ire to him. But even still, Dougal's like way too quick to trust Duran and orders Stukov's execution. But anyway, Patriot's Blood is mission 7. So Duran leads a small strike force into the side disruptor to take down the defenders that are under Stukov's employ and eventually find Stukov, which eventually do, and Duran kills Stukov in cold blood, basically, and then disappears, essentially. He activates his cloak and dips. So Stukov, who is able to survive for a little bit, is able to contact Dougal and basically is like, hey, so I'm dying, but Duran is evil. He's probably infested and working for Kerrigan. And the side disruptor is actually something we really need because it can basically mess up the connection of the Zerg mind. Like it can heavily, it's basically the opposite of the psi emitter, which was the thing that Mansk used back in StarCraft 1 to basically like act as a beacon to pull all the Zerg there. This is something that kind of like repels Zerg sound and connection, so it can like really mess up like Zerg leadership and basically prevent something like the Overmind or Kerrigan from or a Cerebrit from accessing their ability to command lesser Zerg. So after Duran had disappeared, he snuck out or basically snuck through the side disruptor to trigger its self-destruct sequence. So you go from sort of like a stealthy infiltration against Terran to suddenly a race against time against the Zerg as you kind of run through finding all the rest of the Terrans that you can and killing all the Zerg who show up inside the side disruptor and aborting the self-destruct sequence and repowering the side disruptor to then continue with the mission, though now with the death of Admiral Stukov, leaving basically you and Dougal alone because Duran has obviously defected at this point, since he was never on your side to begin with. So the final mission of the Terran campaign, and I realize this is actually going on for a pretty long while, episode-wise, but I'll try and go a little bit faster for Zerg campaign because story-wise it's kind of quick anyway. But yeah, to chain the beast is the final mission of the Terran campaign, and the true motives of the UED are revealed, as they did not just come to supplant the Terran Dominion, but they also came to chain the Overmind, the new Overmind, for their own purpose, basically to use it basically to take over it and use it as a proxy to command the Zerg. And since the Overmind is growing, it's not fully formed, it's still very susceptible. So the UED launches their invasion of Char and are able to fight through the very, very strong Zerg defenses, including the incredibly formidable Tarask, which is a Ultralisk that is even more powerful. It's basically a super Ultralisk that is, even when it dies, it basically gets revived. It is immortal, essentially. As long as its Cerebrit remains alive, it has that same sort of revive powers. It's a really tough enemy to deal with because it basically has like 800 something HP, like 100 attack, and like 5 armor. It's ridiculous. And it'll show up like 15 minutes into the mission and then just never stop showing up until you kill its Cerebrit. It's a very tough thing to deal with. But eventually you're able to get through it because you have the full might of the UED. Some medics show up and apply this like drug to the Overmind, which kind of pacifies it and is able to, in part, like not fully render it under the control of the UED, but in the end, the Overmind is able to, or it does fall to the UED, and they are able to take over a portion of the Zerg. However, at the end of the campaign, Kerrigan shows up with a sort of force of her own, not to actually fight, but basically to kind of introduce herself to Dougal. And Kerrigan's like, all right, you kind of pissed everyone off in the Kapulu sector, so I'm going to rally all the factions against you and take you down, Dougal, because this is my sector. That's basically in her words. Kerrigan's not doing this out of the good of her heart. She wants to basically be the one to rule over the Kapulu sector, not Dougal. So after that, the UED is victorious. The ending cutscene for the UED campaign is always really fun because it's this sort of like Cold War era propaganda, very very cheesy, very very fake news broadcast depicting the UED victory, and it's like, There's the reporters like sounding like a microphone or like sounding like he's talking in a microphone from like through a tunnel where he's like, Zerg, the terrifying threat has been defeated by the generous forces of the United Earth Directorate. Stuff like that. I have no idea if that's going to come out in any or like any good at all in this. I was like kind of talking through my mouth from like 5 feet away. But anyway, yeah, it's a fun one. If you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. Anyway, the final campaign for Brood War, Episode 6, The Queen of Blades. I wonder who it's talking about. So this is the Zerg campaign. And you play as a Cerebrate who Kerrigan basically just kind of kidnaps and forces to work with you, or forces you to work with her. It's like the opening Zoom call with her is like, I wrested you away from the Overmind and Dagos control. You're working with me now, or I will kill you. Because again, Sarah Kerrigan is not a very good person. Like she may have been a good person back when she was originally a Terran, but ever since she becomes the Queen of Blades, she is just not a good person at all. So the first mission starts out, Vile is known as Vile Disruption. You're chilling on Tarsonis at this point, and with the side disruptor going on, also Duran's here because Duran's allied with Kerrigan. They're like, all right, so the side disruptor's kind of wreaking havoc on everyone, and the Zerg are just going nuts. So you have to go around with Kerrigan and the Zerg to go and basically just take over a bunch of fives, kill the Feral Zerg, and just try and like wrest as much control as you can from the Feral Zerg to your own control and consolidate your forces before leaving. So knowing that the side disruptor is causing basically all of our problems at the moment, Kerrigan enlists the help of Raynor, Phoenix, and Mengsk, who she's kind of gathered together because, again, like at the end of the last campaign, her motivations for why she wanted Phoenix and Raynor to get Mengsk is revealed is that she just wants to get everyone together to try and take down the UED. Not out of the goodness of her heart, but at this point, it's like everyone kind of knows that Kerrigan's not exactly, being benevolent about this, but they go along with her anyway because it's like I said before, it's that it's the enemy you know over the enemy you don't, and they also realize that the UED is really powerful, especially now that they have the Overmind under their control. That it is probably in their best benefit to get rid of the UED rather than not work with Kerrigan. So Rain of Fire is the second mission. So Raynor, Phoenix, and Mengsk join the Zoom call, and while none of them are particularly happy about this, especially Mengsk, they decide to go along with it anyway. Mengsk is basically is able to barter a deal where he's willing to work with Kerrigan and supply the Dominion for her in exchange for Kerrigan giving him the Dominion back. Essentially, he wants Kerrigan to kick the Dominion or kick the UED off of Core Hall so he can get his empire back. So in this mission, Kerrigan persuades Mengsk to use one of his psi emitters that he has stored up to go and help bring some more of her, basically some of the local Zerg under her command. So you do that. You basically start out with an SCV carrying the psi emitter and going around and finding a bunch of Zerg. So you're able to find some hunter killers, the super powerful Hydralisks. You're able to find the devouring ones, which are super powered versions of Zerglings. And you're also able to find a Tarask. Not an immortal Tarask, because obviously the Cerebrate that was doing that was dead, but it's still a Tarask, and it's still absurd. And you basically use those super powerful forces along with the ones you can actually build to steamroll through the Braxis defenses that the UED has set up and destroy the side disruptor. So it's kind of funny that for all of the drama that you go through in mission 7 of the UED campaign, 3 missions later, you're just destroying the side disruptor anyway. It was a lot of hubbub for something that lasts for gameplay wise, maybe an hour. But after that, though, we go to mission number 4, the Kelmorian Combined. Not Combined, just the Kelmorian Combine. So with a lot more of the Zerg under her command now, with the side disruptor destroyed, Kerrigan's getting ready to set her sights on Core Hall, because that's sort of where the UED has set up their main base of operations. Because why not use what's already established as sort of the Terran capital as their own base of operations? But Kerrigan knows that she needs a bit more of a resource bank before she can assault Core Hall. So they go to the planet of Moria, which is held by the Kelmorian Combine, which is this sort of independent human faction that's sort of like miners' guild is the best way I can describe it. They just kind of do their own thing. They occasionally show up, but they have a ton of resources on their planet. And Kerrigan's like, all right, let's go steal some. And so while all of our allies outside of Duran are not exactly trustworthy of Kerrigan, they're still willing to go along with it. And so you actually bring along Phoenix for this mission. So it's always a fun one of just seeing Phoenix and his Protoss Dragoon chilling out in a base full of Zerg, because he's the only Protoss unit you get. You just get Phoenix and your normal Zerg. Phoenix is just like willing to go along with a raid on Moria, and so he's just kind of there. This is a pretty boring mission. You just basically mine 10,000 minerals and defend. Like there's no objective to kill. You just basically fight against some Terran occasionally and then mine a bunch of minerals. It's not very important. So after doing that, though, comes the big mission number 5, the Liberation of Core Hall, which is a like very wide and horizontal map, but also narrow on the top. It's an interesting map to see. And it's basically you spawn on the left in a Zerg base with the 10,000 minerals acquired from the previous mission, and the entire, like going from right to left, the entire map is either UED controlled Zerg or the UED itself. So it's a very tough mission in the sense of like a lot of enemies to deal with, but it's a fun one because you start off with a huge bank, so you can basically just immediately roll into like the mid and end game. Like you don't have to spend 10-20 minutes teching up to like Ultralisks and Guardians and whatnot. You can just immediately start like you can get it at like the 3, 4, 5 minute mark. It's very fun. And so it's a high, like fast paced, high intensity assault mission where you're throwing everything you have at a very well defended UED, which eventually you do take down. And it's the UED falls on at Core Hall, leaving Char really as their only main base of operations. And the Dominion is back, sort of in a sense, like they're able to come back, though Kerrigan is not nearly done yet. As Mission 6, True Colors, is where things get quite interesting. As Kerrigan, basically while the Protoss and the Protoss and the Terran Dominion, are chilling and celebrating their victory, Kerrigan and Duran are scheming, and they're like, all right, I think it's time we get rid of our allies because we don't need them anymore. So you get a sneak attack mission where you start out with some lurkers as well as a base to build some more stuff. And you have, I think, like 5 minutes or so with a bunch of Terran bases on the left and a bunch of Protoss bases on the right. And you can, like for those 5 minutes, the Terran and the Protoss are neutral to you. Like they won't attack you unless you attack them. And you basically have free reign to go wherever you want and kill whatever you want. Like obviously if you attack, they will start fighting back. So you can still blunder away your forces by like walking right in the middle of their base and just attacking one unit and then dying to the rest of them. But with good planning, you can take down a lot of either the Protoss, Terran, or both, depending on how you want to do it. But it's another one where Blizzard designed the level very well to allow you to kind of choose how you want to take down. But at the end of this, though, as you melt through the Terran and Protoss forces, the Protoss or the Terran commander is General Duke. One of the mainstay of StarCraft 1, and you're able to, he's chilling in his battleship, the NORAD 3, and you eventually kill him, taking him down for good. So goodbye, General Duke. The other one, though, is Phoenix and his Dragoon. He is leading the Protoss forces here, and he sadly also has to die in this mission. I always am very sad that he dies. And the funny thing, though, is that with every other heroic unit, they are not immune to spells. And there's one Zerg unit, the Swarm Queen. Oh, actually, not the Swarm Queen is the StarCraft 2 version. It's just the Queen. I think it's technically called the Brood Queen when you get to StarCraft 2, but it's this flying spellcaster essentially, and it has one ability called Spawn Broodlings, where it launches this projectile that insta-kills any ground mechanical unit. Actually, I don't remember if it's mechanical or biological or just in general, but it can launch it at a ground unit, and it will instant kill the unit and also spawn a pair of broodlings, which are these weak time life Zerg units that basically just do nothing. But it's the real thing is that it is a one-shot spell. It one-shots a unit, which is on the ground, which is crazy. And Phoenix is not immune to this, so you can literally one-shot him with spawn broodlings. He does not go on a blaze of glory. He just dies. It's a little sad, but it's also, I feel like I gotta have him go out that way because it's funny. In the end, though, Phoenix and Duke lay dead. The Dominion, while they have their world back, are kind of in tatters. The Protoss that have sided with Jim are also in tatters. Jim himself, while spared from Kerrigan's wrath, is very angry. He basically swears that he's going to be the one to kill Kerrigan, which does not end up happening, but we'll get to StarCraft 2. But yeah, Jim is not happy about this. He was, yeah, because he liked Phoenix, and he swears his revenge. But we also don't really see him for the rest of the campaign, funnily enough. So after that, we get to Fury of the Swarm. So back on Tarsonis, which has kind of been Kerrigan's base of operations with Char under the UED's command, the UED actually decided to launch a counterattack on Kerrigan's forces there, with both their Terran forces and more so their Zerg, their Overmind controlled Zerg that they've slaved to their own will. So it's a fun start to the mission where you have 5 bases that are all simultaneously attacked by enemy Zerg. So it's a very fast-paced scramble of trying to salvage what you can before eventually the attack wave goes away, and then it transitions into more of a traditional mission where you have to build up and eventually build up your forces and attack the UED, where you have to kill 30 of their scientists, because Kerrigan and Duran are able to observe that while the UED is able to have a decent number of control over the Zerg with the Overmind, the control was okay at best. It was very shaky, and they needed scientists. Basically, they needed people there to act as cerebrates, essentially, is the best way I can describe it. So these scientists are acting as the minds for the Zerg attack forces while they're sort of away from the Overmind directly. So you take down the scientists, which then nullify the Zerg threat and stops the attack, and also gives more Zerg to Kerrigan. So with that over, we go to Drawing of the Web, which is mission number 7, I think. And is that 7? It's Zerg has a lot. It has 10 missions, I think, actually. Let's see. Vital Disruption, Rain of Fire, Good Morning, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, this is mission 7. Okay. So with her forces secured, Kerrigan now sets her sights on, of all things, Shakuras. Since Kerrigan is moving to eventually assault the UED on Char and get rid of the new Overmind, since it's an Overmind, you obviously need some Dark Templar. And where else to find Dark Templar but Shakuras, their homeworld. Specifically, Kerrigan wants the matriarch Rashagal. For specifically her, the reasons are revealed to you in a little bit. But for now, though, it's just we need to go kidnap the Dark Templar matriarch. So Drawing of the Web is mission number 7, and it's an interesting one where the Protoss capital city of Talametros is this heavily defended city on a mesa that has 5 outposts connected to it that power this this shield of some sort that disrupts any ability to bring in Zerg flyers. So it's basically gives the mission an excuse to not give you flyers, because it would make the mission significantly easier if you could have Guardians. So instead you have to use Duran and ground forces only to take down the pylon networks surrounding the city, which would essentially cause a feedback loop and blow up the city, or at least a good chunk of it. So that is what you do. You take Duran around, and Duran sabotages all the pylon clusters, plants some explosives and all that, since he's a sneaky boy. And the city of Talametros blows up. And in the chaos, Kerrigan is able to find Rajagal, take her, and leave. So with that, basically with Rajagal as a hostage, Kerrigan calls up Zeratul and basically is like, hey, I'll give you back Rajagal if you help me kill the Overmind. And Zeratul's like, fine. He also Rajagal also joins the Zoom call and she's like, hey, I'm all right. Just do what she says. And Zeratul's like, okay, sure. I don't like the Overmind anyway, so I'm okay with this. So Zeratul reluctantly helps Kerrigan out. And mission number 8, to slay the beast, is one where you have Zerg as well as some Dark Templar on your side. And you got to fight through a ton of enemy Zerg on Char, as you're now back on Char. And there's also some enemy Terran as well, since this is the UED. And it's basically every time you fight this UED in the Zerg campaign, it's a mix of Terran and Zerg enemies. So you go and do that, and you break through the very formidable defenses, I might add. This is a tough mission. And eventually able to slay the Overmind. Again, for the final time, the Overmind is dead. This is the final time that the Overmind shows up as a living being, and it is no more. So after that, though, some things get revealed. As after basically the post-mission Zoom call, or actually this one I think happens in game, not in the Zoom call. But Zeratul shows up and he's the one to actually personally kill the new Overmind. He then turns to Kerrigan and he's like, all right, I did what you asked. Can you let Rajagal go? And Kerrigan's like, if she wants to leave, she can leave. And she turns to Rajagal and is like, Rajagal, you want to leave? And Rajagal's like, nah, I'm good. And Zeratul is shocked at first, but then quickly realizes that Rajagal has basically been corrupted by Kerrigan. And it was apparently what had happened was that the second Kerrigan showed up on Shakuras, way back in the start of the Protoss campaign for Brood War, the second she shows up on Shakuras, she is able to somehow have a meeting of the minds with Rajagal, because I guess Rajagal senses her arrival, and Kerrigan's psionic presence just immediately dominates Rajagal into becoming her slave, essentially. It's never it's just kind of hand waved away like that. And it's weird that Kerrigan only does this to Rajagal and none of the other Protoss, but I don't know. It's just for as much as I like Blizzard's writing in Brood War, and really the whole StarCraft 1 as a whole, there's some moments that are a little head scratchy. But anyway, so Rajagal is actually not on your side. She's basically just a puppet for Kerrigan. Zeratul is not happy about this. And so Zeratul is actually basically kidnaps Rajagal for himself, and is starts making plans to leave. So mission number 9, I think this is what it is the Reckoning. And Kerrigan's Kerrigan and Durand go into the Zoom call, and Durand's like, hey, you have all the Zerg under your control now, because there's no Cerebrits left. Dagoth, I guess, dies at some point in this. Who knows? It's never explained exactly what happens to Dagoth. If he became part of the new Overmind, I think he did. Don't know for sure, but in the end, there's no more Cerebrits outside of the one you play as, or at least any important Cerebrits that are contesting her control. So Kerrigan is now fully in control of Zerg. It's just now she has to deal with the Protoss because they're just annoying, and she just doesn't really want Zeratul to get away because she didn't like that. So with some leftover UED to get in her way, Kerrigan is able to eventually get rid of them and then also find the Protoss and basically destroy all of them to prevent them from leaving, and is able to basically she tries to get back Rajagal because I guess she kind of likes having a Protoss puppet, and she wants to have Rajagal back. Eventually, though, when you break Rajagal out of her cell, Zeratul shows up and actually kills Rajagal, because Rajagal, who's able to break through her corruption for a moment, begs Zeratul to kill her so she doesn't remain as a puppet. and Zeratul reluctantly does so. He takes he's not happy about this at all, and he is very saddened about this, and is like one of the many burdens he carries in his very dramatic voice lines of StarCraft 2. He's like, my burdens weigh heavily, and yeah, but Zeratul's very sad when this happens, and it's understandable since he kills someone that he is known for like hundreds of years at this point. Kerrigan, however, she's like, wow, like she's a little surprised that Zeratul actually went through this, and Karen's like, all right, that was cool. I'm gonna let you leave, and she's satisfied enough that she's done a huge deal, dealt a huge blow to the Protoss, and that they are not really a threat to her at the moment. So she just doesn't care. So Zeratul is able to leave, though I think he's like the only Protoss to leave at this point. Like I think every other Protoss that had come to Char with him died. So yeah, again, Zeratul, he's got a lot of stuff going on. But Kerrigan, she's living the high life at the moment. Zeratul, and okay, I guess actually the wiki does say that a few of his brethren left. Actually, yeah, no, duh. I should have remembered this because there's a secret mission, and Zeratul's not the only one to be in this secret mission. So yeah. Anyway, so if you are able to beat the Reckoning, so during the Reckoning, you basically have like a 25-minute countdown where it's like, if the countdown ends, the mission, you lose the mission because Zeratul and the Protoss are able to escape back to Shakuras. If you beat the mission before 5 minutes are left on the clock, you are able to unlock the secret mission, which is Dark Origin. And Dark Origin is one where you actually play as Zeratul, as well as some Protoss, including some Dark Archon. And basically on the way back from Char, Zeratul and his very small fleet of ships finds are like passing an old Protoss colony is the best way I can describe it. But they actually are detecting a Terran signal, which very much confuses Zeratul. So he decides to take a bit of a detour to go check it out. So he finds a Terran research facility, which he initially thinks is, I think, the Dominion, but it's revealed that it's not quite the Dominion. Instead, as he goes along, he finds the Terran actually researching both Protoss and Zerg in various stasis cells, and Zeratul is both confused and very offended at this. Eventually, though, when you get to the final stasis cell, after basically using the Dark Archons to mind control all of the useful Terran defenses on this, because Dark Archons are incredibly fun, Zeratul is able to find a stasis chamber housing a Zerg and Protoss hybrid. And Zeratul is then contacted by none other than Samir Duran, who sounds even more weird than normal. And he actually reveals that, well, he is the one behind this, and that he is using the purity of form from the Protoss and purity of essence from the Zerg to create a hybrid between the two, which is something that he is part of doing for a grandmaster plan of his actual master, which is not Kerrigan, someone else entirely who does not get revealed until StarCraft 2. But yeah, it sets up a lot for the next game. Big spooky stuff with the hybrid, and that's basically all it is for Dark Origin. It's a setup for the next game. For now, though, we have the final mission, Omega. So Kerrigan has now basically wrested control of the entire Zerg swarm under her command, has beaten down the UED, beaten down the Protoss, beaten down the Dominion, beaten down Jim, basically pissed off everyone in the Kapulu sector, and that comes back to bite her in the end, sort of. It comes back to bite her in the sense that 3 separate fleets show up, 2 Terran, 1 Protoss. The 2 Terran, one of them is a Dominion fleet led by Mengsk. The second is the remaining UET forces led by Dugal. And the third is Protoss forces led by Artanis. Artanis is seeking to avenge basically everyone Kerrigan killed. Protoss-wise, so like Phoenix, Rashagal, the whatnot, Aldaris as well. We can throw him in there as well. Mengsk is showing up because he just hates Kerrigan, and also for killing General Duke. And then Dugal showing up because Kerrigan basically ruined all of his plans. And also, basically ruined all of his plans. Part partially was the reason why Stukov got killed. Basically, everyone deservedly starts ganging up on Kerrigan. So it is one big final mission where you are the Zerg in the middle of the map. The UED basically takes up the entire top half of the map, while the Dominion takes up the left side and the Protoss takes up the right side. And you got to beat all of them. And you do. That is what you do. Kerrigan is able to take down all three forces, forcing Manx and Artanis to surrender. Kerrigan lets them go with what little forces they have remaining. While for the UED, unfortunately for them, Kerrigan is not as merciful, and she basically is like, I'll give you a head start. I'm the queen bitch of the universe. I wanted to include that quote because she says that at some point. I forget exactly when, but it's like she I forget who she's talking to. I think it's it might have actually been Dougal at the end of the UED campaign, where they like first meet up, and Kerrigan's like, Dougal's asking who she is, and Kerrigan's like, I'm basically the queen bitch of the universe. And it's like, it's such a good line. It's like perfectly encapsulates who Kerrigan is in Brood War. And so she, after defeating Dougal, basically gives him a head start to try and get back to Earth, but sends her forces after Dougal. And in the epilogue that we see, or the like final cutscene that we see, and the epilogue a little bit, none of the UED would make it back. Dougal on his flagship, the Alexander, as the UED forces are fleeing, he is in the final cutscene. He is recording a audio file to his wife Helena, basically talking, like apologizing to her for his failures, which actually ends with him shooting himself. Like literally the final cutscene in the original StarCraft, including Brood War, is Dougal committing suicide because of his failures. So Kerrigan has won. The Swarm is victorious. They are ruling, though Kerrigan is actually willing to basically disappear for a little bit and let her enemies rebuild, because she's so overconfident that she basically wants a fair fight between the Dominion, the remaining Protoss, and then say also Jim and his boys. So it's, she doesn't immediately go and take down everyone, because like at this point everyone's been kind of beaten down by the UED. So she gets rid of the UED, but waits a little bit. It would wind up being 4 years in canon before she would return. But that will not happen until StarCraft 2. This episode was actually a lot longer than I was expecting. Because I figured since Brood War is shorter than the base campaign, that this episode will also be shorter. But Brood War is, I think, the story is more interesting than the base campaign, so I guess there's more to talk about there. But yeah, that does it for the Brood War campaign. So StarCraft 1 and Brood War ends off with Kerrigan completely victorious. The Dominion is back, but they're a bit beaten, though they are rebuilding. Raynor is now basically on his own again. He doesn't have his Protoss allies anymore, because obviously Phoenix died. So he goes off to form his own rebel group against Mengsk and the Dominion. We pick up back with him in Wings of Liberty. And then the Protoss are together now on Shakuras, though severely beaten down after everything that happened. So they are taking a while to recover, with Artanis now kind of taking over command as sort of their leader, essentially. Since Zeratul kind of, he was never really a leader type. He was kind of, he's doing his own thing. And then Rajagal, who would have been the leader, is obviously dead. So yeah, it's Artanis time. Also, Alduris could have also been a leader, but he died too. So yeah, that is where the state of the Kapulu sector is at the end of StarCraft 1. Next week, I will pick up with StarCraft 2. I guess I'll probably just do one episode for each campaign. I'm basically going to go through the Wings of Liberty campaign, see how long that takes. And if I need to, I'll keep going into, like, if it's short enough, I'll go into Heart of the Swarm. If not, I'll just end it there. I don't really want to talk about Heart of the Swarm too much because it sucks. But yeah, we'll get to that when we get to that. For now, though, that will do it. Next episode will be the Super Bowl recap on Tuesday. Very interested to see who is going to come out on top between the Seahawks and the Patriots. My guess is the Seahawks, as I've said for a while now, but who knows with this whole Nick Eman-War injury? I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, that is going to do it. Thank you very much for listening.